Hi, I'm Jed Brewer, and you are watching the Channa 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 podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of my podcast. We have a special guest today joining all the way from United States. We have Mr. Jed Brewer joining the podcast. Hi, Jed.
Hi, Channa. Thanks so much for me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, nice to talk to you finally. We've been connected for some time in Facebook, but it took some time to do this podcast.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It's great to connect.
Yeah. So, Jed, how's everything going there? So where are you based now? You're in Chicago or Miami?
So I grew up in Miami, but I live now in Chicago. And right now it is freezing cold. Everything is covered in snow and ice, and it is very, very cold here.
So how's the situation with the pandemic?
Thanks for asking, man. It's slowly beginning to get better. Our the numbers in the United States are getting a little bit better. The numbers in Chicago are getting a little bit better. Hopefully vaccines are on the way, but I'm cautiously optimistic. How about for you?
Uh, so we've been in a lockdown for like 9 months now. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, so I think it's more than that actually. But things are actually slowly opening up. I think people
Okay.
seems to be. Uh, I think now people are seems to be just putting the mask and they're trying to go by their life. So because I think they've been quite tired with just staying at home and not able to do anything. So I think it's looks positive, especially
Sure.
with the vaccine and stuff. So I
Okay.
think things will get better.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. So Jed, we how I got to know you is actually from the band from Sri Lanka, Silence of Loud. So when I talked to them, and then that's how I got to know you, and then got
Sure.
connected. So how did you manage to get connected with them? What's the story behind it? Because I see that you do a lot of things with them.
Sure, sure. Well, this is for all the stories that exist of the internet making the world a worse place. The For me, there have been a couple of key moments where the internet has made at least my world much, much better. And so I would say a couple of years ago, through I don't even remember which one now, but some online Facebook music group. I saw a post from Ashen Sandaru, who's the vocalist for Silence of Loud,
Mm.
and he, I think, was doing a cover of Stairway to Heaven. And I was just kind of flipping through my phone, and I saw that video and took a second to listen. It's like, man, this guy's really good. He can really sing. He's got a lot of talent. And so you know, um, uh, I got to know Ashton really off of that video. And then actually, both Ashton and the guys in Silence of Loud have done a bunch of favors for me. Basically, I do some radio content where I regularly need new music, and they've been willing to kind of put together some music for me. So that's how I know them. But man, they're great dudes. They're talented guys. They're a killer band.
Right. And I had them on my podcast some time back. So uh, one thing that really special for me from the band is the song that they put out, "Pain and Scream,"
Yeah,
because it was written as a tribute to what happened in 2019, April 2019 in Sri Lanka. Actually,
yeah,
that church where that bombs blew up is actually where I'm from. That's my
really.
Yeah, that's my village. So that's and my mom was actually there during that bomb blast. So
Oh my goodness, is she
y-
okay?
yeah, she's okay. She was outside.
Okay,
So
okay, okay.
when I listen to that song, it really because as foreigners, as staying outside of the country, we couldn't sleep for that whole like couple of weeks. We couldn't even we didn't know what to do with what happened because it was so terrible, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how people can actually do such evil things, right?
You know, it's a messed up world, man. It's a messed up world, and it's. I think, you know, one of the great things about the arts is it's a chance to say something redemptive in the face of so much, you know, hate and so much suffering and so much bad stuff. And I think, you know, part of what makes that song so special is that's what the guys in Silence of Loud did, is to use art to say something beautiful in the face of something really rough and really terrible.
Yeah. So, Jed, I mean, looking through your online, through Facebook, YouTube, I see you like everywhere. Like you do recording, you do producing, you write songs, you sing songs, and you do podcasts, radio shows. Where do you get this energy to do all this, and where do you actually have time to do all these things?
Well, you know, I of course I owe straight black tea is part of the secret. Just, you know, brewed black tea. Um, but I'm really blessed. You know, I'm fortunate to have a number of people that I really like working with, and that it's cool to be able to do team ups with, whether that's musical stuff or podcast stuff. And um, you know, one of the things for me very early on in media creation is I had a couple of jobs where they required really fast turnaround times. People needed stuff and they needed it, like, you know, like right now. And
Right.
so I got in the motion of working really fast, and that trick has served me well ever since.
Right. So, Jed, I'm quite interested about what sort of influences you had. So, can you tell me a little bit about your childhood, growing up, and then what's your like earliest memory of music?
Sure, absolutely. I was thinking about this earlier, and this is a little bit silly, but my the earliest recording that I remember, and I remember being obsessed with it, is the band Survivor, the song "Eye of the Tiger."
Right.
Um, I have no idea how I had this, but when I was about 4 years old, I had a cassette copy of that song. And I remember just putting it in a little, you know, tape player, just playing it over and over and over again. Uh, so that's my earliest memory, is Eye of the Tiger. But then when I was 8 or 9 years old, kind of my older brothers got me into hip hop, and so this would be groups like Run DMC. It was kind of that era. And then those same older brothers got me into kind of some of the West Coast early heavy metal bands like Skid Row and Warrant and Poison and that kind of stuff.
Mm.
And then as I got to be, you know, a little bit older, I had friends that got me more into the thrash metal scene. You know, so bands that would be more in the Metallica, Megadeth, you know, that kind of direction. Um, and then from there, I kind of branched. I got super into industrial music, so that would be bands like Nine Inch Nails,
Mm.
KMFDM, that kind of thing.
Right.
But the other influence that kind of marries with all that is I grew up, my dad is a guitar player and a singer. So I grew up listening to folk music all the time at home, you know, like James Taylor and John Denver and that kind of stuff. So
Right.
those are kind of my influences, man.
Right. So, so when did you like first perform, or did some public uh, performances? When was this?
You know, that's a good question. So my primary instrument, my first instrument is the drums. And I think I started playing in bands when I was maybe 14, probably something like that. So there was a very vibrant music scene in Miami at that time. And so there were a lot of bands to play in and a lot of bands that needed a drummer, even as one as not great as me. So there were opportunities. So probably, I would say probably about 13 or 14.
Right. So, growing up in Miami, you were not influenced by the death metal scene that happened in Florida, and
Oh, definitely influenced by the death metal scene, man. In fact, I'm really blessed to this day to have some really dear friends and close collaborators that are a part of that. My friend Phil Pluscoda, who runs Sonic Assault Studios, is a huge pillar in that community today. He has probably the best amp collection of anyone I've ever met in my life. And critically, he has the ears to dial all of those amps in. So if you're listening right now to the Channa 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 podcast and you're in a band and you're like, how do I get a sick tone? Well, you turn to my man, Phil Pluscoda, because he will hook you up. He's got the skills and he's got the tools.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I talked to a couple of bands from there as well, like bands like Agora, and then guys from Cynic. So they're, I mean, it's amazing scene, right?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the wild thing about Miami is if you go back in time like 20 years, you've got an incredible metal scene. You've got artists like, well, you've got industrial artists that are emerging. You've got a huge electronic music scene. You know, I mean, a lot of the Miami house stuff you've got going on.
Right.
Then obviously you've got Afro Latin jazz, you've got reggae, you've got dub. I mean, Miami, you know, is just an incredible melting pot for music. It's unbelievable.
Right. So Jed, how did you get interested on making your own music, or getting involved with producing, mixing, recording? How did that happen?
Well, when I was in high school, I had a bunch of friends who were a little bit older than me who played in bands and whatnot. And I had a couple friends who worked at recording studios. And I basically played the role, you know, the annoying little brother that wants to follow the older brother around everywhere all the time. Well,
Right.
that was me with my friends who worked at recording studios. And so they would let me hang out. And this is you know, for people who are hip to recording. This is back in the day of ADAT machines and that kind of thing. So it's been a while, but I got to hang out. I got to be a part of the process, and I just fell in love with it, man. You know, I mean, the earliest recordings that I remember making were on you know a little 4-track tape recorder, and they sounded awful. They were super bad, but to me it was magical. I loved it, and it's one of those you know I hope everybody experiences something in life where they do it and they're like, I want to keep doing that as long as I can. I hope everybody has that experience. And for me, the first time that I really got to record music, that was that for me.
Right. So I was looking at your records. I mean, albums that you put in Spotify. There are few albums there. What I really loved about them, I mean, although those are sort of worship music or like gospel music, but you really
Sure.
you put a real good rock spin to them, and I can you know I see that James Taylor, you know, those folk influences coming out. Can you tell me a little bit about the first album that you put out?
Yeah. So the earliest album that is on those services is an album called God Quit. And you know, I grew up actually. I'm a preacher's kid. So to any preacher's kids who are listening, what's up? And you know, as I was writing the songs on that, I was in just kind of a place of rethinking things, you know, a lot in my life, and kind of I was trying to figure out what role, if any, did I want spirituality to play in my life? What role did I want faith to play in my life? And one of the things I was looking at is if it's going to be a part of my life, I need to make it my own. You know, I don't want an inherited belief. You know, I want to kind of have, you know, my own thing here. And so as I was, there's a lot of, for me, that was kind of an angst-ridden process. So it made sense for that to be reflected in the music. I mean, I think it's hard to struggle in a major key. You know, I think if you're going through you know a hard time and you're trying to figure things out, you know there need to be some loud guitars and some loud drums, and you know that's really where God Quit came from, is thematically me trying to figure out, you know, what do I believe and what do I want to believe, you know, what do I want to center my life on, and then that process of rethinking things that are really important. What does that sound like for me, you know, sonically? And that's kind of what came out the other end was that record.
Right. There's this song called Woman, God, and Rock and Roll. I really love that
Yes.
song.
Oh, thanks, man. Thank you so much. Well, the fun thing about that song is kind of it was my admitting to myself, these are the three things that keep screwing up my life. Is you know, every time, you know, I've got a woman, every time I'm trying to figure something out with God, and every time I get in a band, it ruins my life. I got to figure something else out here.
Right. So you said that you are a preacher's kid, so and so spirituality is a big part of your growing up. How did you made it your own?
That's a good question, man. Well, I think, the funny thing about any form of faith, no matter what someone believes in, is you can't believe in something for someone else.
Right.
Like I think one of the things I had to come to is, all faith is personal. I mean, you believe whatever you believe, you believe for yourself. And so I think, for me, when you're a preacher's kid, and I can't speak for all preachers' kids everywhere, but this was true for me, and I suspect it was true for other people, is there's a lot of opinions you're supposed to have, and there's a lot of things that you're supposed to, if not believe, to at least ascribe to. I mean, like if you think the idea of like reciting a creed, like there's a creed that begins, I believe in God the Father, maker of heaven and earth, right? And so you're supposed to know these things, but that's not the same as deciding, for me personally, this is what I think is true, this is what I think matters. And so one of the things that was going on in my life, kind of as I was asking those questions and then writing songs about them, is I had gotten involved as a volunteer working with people who were coming out of really tough circumstances in their lives. So that could be homelessness, that could be long-term incarceration, imprisonment, that could be long-term substance abuse, but people where life had really not been kind and now they were trying to make a change. And what I realized as and again, I was just, volunteer doing that work at that point, but what I realized is stuff resonates with me. Kindness and mercy and compassion, those things really resonate with me. And I want a life that is built on those. I'm not sure, at that time I wasn't sure exactly what that would look like, but to me it's like that feels real to me, and I want a life that's built on those realities.
Right. Right. So you touched on the the about the people coming out of prison and addiction. So I know that you're working with the organization, the Bridge Chicago. Can you tell me a little bit about this organization?
Sure, absolutely. So the Bridge Chicago exists with a very, very simple mission, which is, if you've been through a rough time in your life and you're, roughly speaking, in the greater Chicagoland area, which is a pretty big place, we'd love to help you get to the next phase of your life, whatever that might be. So if you've been experiencing homelessness in your life, we'd love to help you find a place to live and maybe a job to go with it. If you've been behind bars for the last few years and you're completing that sentence, we'd love to help you get situated in the next stage of your life. That might include a place to live and a job and those kind of things. So I've been doing that work for about 13 years at this point, actually. But that's what we do. That's our focus. It's a faith-based group, so it's a Christian group. But our desire is to help people just make a change in their lives and get to a place where they're doing better and they're feeling better and where things are working better for them.
Right. So I've been listening to I actually subscribe to your podcast. Actually, you have Bridge podcast, you have Say That podcast, and then the one I really like is the Bridge Loud radio show because you
Oh,
play like
thanks, man.
uh, I know that you actually choose all the songs that gets played on Bridge Loud, right? So it's
Right. Yeah.
uh, I mean, I really love that sort of some of the hard rock, post grunge sound sort of songs that you put out. It's really good.
Thank you so much, man. I'm delighted that you're listening. That's a huge honor.
Yeah, I actually subscribe to it because it's really pretty amazing. um,
Thanks, brother.
so, Jed, with last couple of years, especially in the US, with all the social media and all these chaotic things happening, and people are so divided, and what do you think should happen? Because it seems like everybody is so divided. It happens everywhere, even here. So how can we bring people together?
That's a really, really good question. And it would take a much, much smarter person than me to give a good answer. But I can give you what I think is true. And what I think is true is that um, any place will do best, any society, any town, any state, any country will do best when everyone's needs are met and when everyone's dignity is respected. One of the things I was talking about, kind of, reinventing my faith and figuring out what I actually believe. And as a quick reference, I think one of the most important verses in the Bible is one of the earliest verses in the Bible, where it says that God created people in God's image. And I think that that's really important because in my faith tradition, one of the implications of that is that every human being has dignity because they were created in the image of God, and which means every human being should be respected, they should be cherished, they should be cared for. And so I think that societies can have peace, and I think that they can grow great when we care for one another as being created in the image of God, when we respect one another's dignity, and when we make sure that no one is going hungry, and that no one is without a place to live, and that no one is without access to healthcare or clean water, or the things that really mark the requirements of life and the requirements of a dignified life, which I think all human beings are owed.
Right. Um, one more song, Jed, I love from your tracks is there's a song called God Don't Let Me Quit.
Right on, right on.
Can you tell me a little
Thank you
bit
so
about
much.
that song?
I can, and I'll tell you specifically about a friend of mine who's no longer with us, who in many ways was the person that song is for. So I have a friend who's passed away a few years ago now, named Angel, who had a very rough time in life, had been through a lot of struggles, had a number of years of substance and temptation, and it makes total sense, is self-pity, is kind of that sense life is so tough and things are so, and the reason why it's, for almost anyone who's coming out of a rough time, particularly addiction, right now things are tough. It's not a lot of fun to be working on sobriety.
Mm.
But the other side of it is, if you start going down that sense of, life is so tough and things are so hard, one of the very next thoughts that's going to appear in your head is, I need something to make me feel better. And what would make me feel better is this drug or this drink or this pill or whatever. And so it's kind of, they say in recovery circles that self-pity is kind of a gateway to a backslide. So the whole point of the song God Don't Let Me Quit is a really, really honest prayer to God of, I want to quit. I feel sorry for myself. I want to stop making positive changes in my life, to take that one next step. I need your help to keep going for one more day or one more hour or 5 more minutes. And so that's actually the point of that song. It's written specifically for my friends that are facing that hard work of addiction recovery.
Right. So, Jed, looking at all your collaborations, I see that you did a lot of collaborations with artists from Asia, right? So, when did you like first got involved with Asian artists? Have you ever been to Asia?
I have not, unfortunately. I hope that when COVID is behind us, I hope that I am able to do that, because at this
Right.
point, I have quite a few dear friends that I would love to visit and see in person. But I would say there's basically two people that are dear friends and brothers to me. And so one is Ashen. And through Ashen Sandaru, I've been able to meet, a host of incredibly talented artists in Sri Lanka and beyond. And the other is my friend Brandon, who is better known as DJ Andon Rock. and he is one of Malaysia's up and coming DJs. And similarly, I met Brandon through Facebook, and we got to be friends, and we've done a lot of music together. But I'm super blessed to have met a number of crazy talented folks throughout Malaysia and that area through Brandon. But um, again, this is one of those weird moments where Facebook actually did something good in the world, as opposed to making everything worse. So we got to celebrate the wins where we get them.
Right. So you talk about Brandon. So this is you actually have a duo with Brandon, right? The Brave and the Bold.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
And I did that. I saw that remix you did on the Aerosmith song. I don't want to miss a thing.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So the thing about Brandon is he's a total genius when it comes to all kinds of things, but especially to dance music. So we were talking, a couple months ago, and he said, it's probably going to sound crazy, but I think, we can take. I've got this vocal track from this Aerosmith song, and I've got this EDM track, and I think we could put them together. I think it'd be super cool. And so, well, you know what, let's try it. Let's give it a shot. And he was totally right. And it's super, super fun. And people have really enjoyed it. It's actually gotten a really cool response from folks. So it's a wild time, man.
So the remix track is called "I Don't Want to Miss a White Fang," right? White flag or white?
A white flag. That's right. Yeah, because the original Aerosmith song is "I Don't Want to Miss a Thing," and then the electronic music track is called "White Flag."
Right, right. So being a sort of a faith-based artist, the faith is a big part of you. Um, you're not. I see, because I feel that um, you're not afraid to put your music or your collaboration with artists that are sort of the a good example is the Malaysian band Sinus or Tachycardia, I think it's called, that they
Yeah.
actually use your lyrics for their song, which is like a sort of a metalcore song.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so how do you sort of choose who you collaborate with, or you're open? You're not worried about, like, I maybe this is not good for my sort of image, or maybe it's something because you maybe you you know what, with what you do with your ministry and
Sure.
everything.
It's a cool question, man. So sinus tachycardia is a bunch of really talented dudes in Malaysia, and especially my friend Aldo is kind of he's I think probably could be said to be the band leader. He's a brilliant guy. He's a great songwriter. He's actually an amazing filmmaker.
Mm.
As good of a musician as he is, he's a really good musician. He's an incredible filmmaker, really, really talented. Um, what I would say is, I think that good art of any kind, is always about expressing truth. That's what art does. I think art of any kind, it exists to illuminate the human condition. It exists to help us understand something about what it means to be human and to live on this planet. And I don't think that people of faith ever need to be afraid of the truth.
Mm.
I mean, one could argue about, whether the truth needs to be expressed using naughty words or not, but I don't think people of faith ever need to be afraid of the truth. And one thing that I've found is, I think the vast majority of artists, whether they would share my faith tradition or not, I think the vast majority of artists believe that kindness is a good thing. They believe that compassion is a good thing. And that is great common ground to have.
Right.
That is a fertile soil where I think all kinds of great collaborations can grow.
Right. Yeah, because so because there's this notion that metal is bad, or metal is like satanic or something, right?
Sure, sure, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's one of these things where, you know, the the Christian scriptures, contain all kinds of references. I imagine the story of Jesus driving people who were doing uncool things out of the church. Taking off his belt and just saying, "I've had enough, and you're all out of here." That's pretty metal, man. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I think if there was a music video for that moment, I think it would need to be like Pantera or something, because Like, I don't think that you could queue up soft pop over Jesus driving people, out of the church building. I just don't think it would work. So I think there's plenty about Jesus, especially, that's pretty metal.
Yeah, actually, what the scene you're describing is, it reminds me the album cover of Skid Row's "Slave to the Grind."
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Sebastian Bach would definitely know what was up.
Yeah. I saw your good. You bring up Pantera. So I saw this Facebook post you recently posted. You were looking for Southern metal. Did you find any good Southern
Yes,
metal?
I did. In fact, I can pull it up and tell you because I got some amazing recommendations. The band that's a long-term favorite of mine, and I don't think they're together anymore, is called Maylene and the Sons of Disaster. They're amazing. I mean, like, really, really epic. But let me pull that up. There were some great recommendations. Hell Yeah is really good, in my opinion. I think they were awesome. Uh, one second. There we go. There's that post. Um, my buddy James recommended to me. I hadn't heard them, a band called Texas Hippie Coalition. And man, they can cook. That's really, really good stuff. Let's see who else was on that list. Um, Spirit Box, really solid, really solid. Once Nothing, my friend Mel, who's an amazing musician in her own right, for that matter. Once Nothing is great. Um, Who else? A Life Once Lost. My buddy Kyle is definitely right about that. And of course, he's also right that Every Time I Die has a lot of very good Southern style riffage
Right.
to them. And let's see. I think that was the highlight reel. I think that was highlight reel. But yes, I got hooked up with all kinds of. But if you have a band to add to the list, I'm looking for more. So don't hold back.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So one more collaboration that you did. I'm not sure how do you contributed to him, but there's another person called Scott Grundy, a hip hop artist, right?
Yes,
So what's the
yes.
collaboration with him?
So Scott is an artist and a singer-songwriter from the Chicago area here, and Scott is this amazing, multi-talented person. He's a really gifted songwriter, but he's a rapper, he's a singer, he's a songwriter, and to me, I think if you take the best parts of groups like Linkin Park or Limp Bizkit and combine it with my favorite stuff of Nirvana, maybe some Alice in Chains. Like that's kind of what he does. And the way that I met Scott was when we started doing the Bridge Loud. One of the great things about radio, I think one of the things that makes it still relevant in the 21st century is that radio is local. You are broadcasting to a local area, and so when I do radio stuff, it's important to me that I want to include people from that area because I think that makes it 10 times stronger. And so I was looking for artists in the Chicago area who I thought had a unique sound, and I connected with Scott, and it's like, man, this guy, he has a really cool vibe. He's got a great sound. And one of the things about Scott that I discovered that was so impressive to me is not only is he a talented guy, but he's a really good-hearted dude. He's a dude who, uh, every other time I see him online, he's trying to do a fundraiser for feeding hungry kids or for a homeless shelter or that kind of thing. And it's a rare thing to find someone who has a ton of talent, but also has a great heart to go with it. And that's, to me, that's one of the things that makes Scott who he is. He's a great guy and a great artist.
Right. um, I really loved I mean, you've been working with Silence of Loud, and also Ashen did a solo song. I really love that one about All of Us Cannot Fail. Uh,
Oh, thank you.
can you tell me how that song came to be?
Absolutely. So totally randomly, a few years ago, my wife, Hallie, who is amazing and wonderful, my favorite person in the world, she got the idea that we should learn to scuba dive. And I said, because I had no idea what was involved, I said, oh, sure, that sounds great. It nearly killed me, but I made it through. So we're both scuba divers, which is it's super cool and super fun. But it kind of sparked within me a an interest in environmentalism and in environmental conservation that I never really thought about before. Is something kind of magical about being underwater and looking at coral reefs and realizing this is an amazing thing. You know, it would be good for us to work together as a people and as a world to find a way to preserve this. So I got the idea, you know, I mentioned earlier kind of writing songs with a particular focus, like, you know, for folks who are in addiction recovery, as an example. And I started wondering, could you do that with environmentalism in mind? And got to connect at this point, about a year and a half ago, with a person who's become a great friend named Darshani De Silva, who's an environmental scientist and a very accomplished person. And I bugged Darshani relentlessly, and I said, do you think you could help me write some lyrics that would point young people in the right direction in terms of how to care for the environment? And to my great joy, she said, sure, we can do that. So we went back and forth, and she helped me, and really she wrote them, but, you know, we created these lyrics of, you know, here's what she would want young people to know about how to care for the environment. And then I put that to music. But when it came time to, you know, have someone sing it, you know, I felt like, you know, we need somebody who A, believes in that, who really that's important to them, and then who really just, they could put it out there. I mean, they could really just, you know, as they say, go hard with that. And Ashen has such an incredible voice. He, you know, has an amazing heart, and he cares about the planet, and he cares about others, and he has this killer voice. So I asked, you know, would you be willing to do that? And he said, yeah, we can do that. And what was amazing is, one of my favorite things in a long time is he went to a studio called Montage, which is run by our friend Chaturanga Ranadatta. It's kind of in, if I understand correctly, I think it's kind of southeast Colombo. And Chaturanga is awesome. He's a great guy. He's a great engineer. And so they recorded these vocals and they sent it back to me. And not only had Ashen, you know, done a great job with the vocal, he'd done these incredible harmonies. I mean, like the song that I sent him was here, and then what he sent me back was up here. And to me, like, that's the most magical moment with any kind of artistic collaboration, is where something starts here and goes up to here. You know, I love that. So that's kind of how the song came about. So when we finished it up, you know, we made a little music video for it, and we put it online, and it's kind of blown up. It's gone everywhere. It's been viewed a ton. But the key thing to me that was so fulfilling is seeing people kind of take segments out of the lyrics and say, yeah, this is me. This is what I'm about. This is what I want to be about. I want my friends to be about this. And that, I mean, that was the whole point, was to give, you know, young people who care about the environment and want to do something for it, to give them something that they could latch onto and be like, I identify with that. That's the thing that I want to be about. So that's the story on that song.
Right. I mean, that's a great thing that, you know, putting out such a relevant message in a very cool song. You know, it had an amazing video as well.
Thanks, Channa.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, these days it's very, I think for young people especially, the what's happening in the world can be very confusing, right? So there's so much
Sure.
confusion, the messaging, you hear this, you hear that, and you don't know how to decide. What's your
Sure.
message to them, how to, you know, sort of, how to figure out, you know, where to go, or, you know?
How do you make sense of the world that you're in?
Right.
Well, I would offer two thoughts, and they come from my faith tradition, but they've been very helpful in my life. So the first one would be to love other people as you love yourself. That when you're not sure what else to do, that you try to do towards and for other people the thing that you would want people to do for you. If you know, if you're not sure what that would be, then we could even limit it to say, if there's stuff that you know you wouldn't want someone doing to you, well, don't do that to somebody else.
Right.
You know, I think that's the first part. And then I think the second part is figuring out, how do I connect with something larger than myself? You know, one of the things that gets discussed a lot in addiction recovery circles like AA or Alcoholics Anonymous or NA is the idea of a higher power. You know, and um, I think that finding a way to connect with something that is bigger than you, and figuring out what does it mean to develop a relationship with something that is bigger than you, and figuring out how to be yourself in that relationship and how to be honest in that relationship. I think that's been an incredibly important thing in my life. But I would say again, figuring out how do you love others well, how do you love them as yourself, how do you do towards them the way you would want somebody to do towards you, and to the extent that you can, and to the extent that it makes sense to you, I think now what to develop a relationship with a power to that is how navigating the world that we find ourselves in.
Right. So, Jet, can you tell me a little bit about the Bridge podcast? I know that you also be part of it. You like three. There are three people who's doing it. So, what sort of topics do you discuss on the Bridge podcast?
Second, Shanna, could you ask me that question one more time?
Yeah. So I was asking about the Bridge podcast. Can you tell me a little bit about what's the message of Bridge podcast? What sort of topics you discuss and who's in it?
Sure, sure, absolutely. So we have kind of things that name. So I'll tell you about both chicago.com/radio. Again, thebridgechicago.com/radio. You can find pretty much all this stuff. But so my colleague, Matt King, who is the world's greatest podcast everything. He's a brilliant guy. He's incredibly talented. He is the person that really week in and week out makes both of the following programs. One of them it's if you think about like every Monday, if you had 20 minutes where the whole point was just to encourage you, like you're just asking, life is hard, the world's hard. And if you had 20 minutes, it was just meant to build you up and encourage you and give you, positive and encouraging word. That's what Matt puts together. And so it's usually a little bit of music. There's kind of a thought. You might think of it almost as like a sermonette kind of thing. Maybe a little bit of some scripture to chew on. But that's thing one. And I contribute a lot of music. Is we make a show also called The Bridge that's specifically for folks who are currently behind bars, who are currently in prison. So at least in the United States, the vast majority of people who are in prison do not have any form of internet access. And one of the few things that most prisoners have access to is radio, like just a little handheld FM radio. And so I have been in as a volunteer. I've been in a lot of prisons in the United States, and prisons are really, really lonely places. You feel they're lonely places and they're very desperate places. And so the point of the Bridge radio show, again, for people who are behind bars, is 30 minutes to give that specific audience some encouragement that they can go one more week, that they can go one more day. I mean, the interesting thing about prison, I've heard it said, and I've seen it with my own eyes, is that for a lot of guys, it's easy to get in a place where you just, you sleep 14 hours a day because there's nothing else to do and you're depressed and this is just awful. It's just the worst time in your life. And of course, not all facilities will let you do that, but plenty will. And the thing that we want people who are behind bars to know is forgotten you and God will eventually be released, and we're going to be here for you then too. That there is hope for your life. Your life is not over, and it's not gonna be over. And we are cheering you on today. We're gonna keep cheering you on tomorrow, and we're gonna be ready to keep cheering you on when you move on to the next phase of your life.
Right. So, Jet, what are you? Any upcoming releases? What are you? Any collaborations you're currently working on that you can share with us?
man, there's a few things that I think are pretty exciting. So on the EDM front, my friends, of course, DJ Andon Rock, Brandon Julius from Malaysia, and another really amazing Malaysian producer and composer guy named Galvin Patrick. And then a singer, a very, very talented young lady named Sharon. They have a track that I've gotten to do a little bit with that's hopefully going to be coming out in the next few weeks called Only Hope. And it's amazing. I was just listening to it earlier today. That's going to be super, super fun. And then hopefully, I would say in the next couple months, there's going to be a next track to do with the environment that's going to be coming out. So that'll be cool. Certainly more details on that soon. And then I heard earlier today, I was chatting with one of the guitar players, my man Sachithra from Silence of Loud. They've got some new music in the works. And hopefully I'll get to do something on that. But they're very, very exciting stuff. So there's all kinds of future cool music coming any day now.
Yeah, amazing. So, Jed, what's your message to the viewers of the podcast?
Well, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for listening. We really, really appreciate it. Man, we're just grateful for you. I know it's a hard time in the world. I know man, there's a lot but I'm sure I speak for you, Channa, when I say, we love you. We're grateful for you. We're grateful for you tuning in, and sending good thoughts your way, sending good vibes, sending prayers your way, whatever you prefer out of that trio. But sending all of it your way. Keep your heads up. I believe 2021 is going to be a better year than 2020, and little bit by little bit, we'll get there.
Right, right. Jed, anybody you want to shout out to?
Man, it's a long list, but shout out to all of my friends in Sri Lanka. Shout out to my friends in Malaysia, to my friends in Nigeria, to the whole Bridge Chicago and Mission USA community that is spread hither and yon. My friends in UK and Scotland. I love you all. I'm grateful for you all, and thanks for being the amazing people that you are.
Yeah, Jed. So, thank you for joining the podcast. I really enjoy talking to you, and looking forward to all this great music that you put out. Keep making great music, and tell everyone how they can follow you or connect with you on social media.
Channa, thanks so much for having me, man. It has been such a treat. I'm so grateful, and I really appreciate it, man. For folks to connect, there's a couple of great ways to do that. So I'll give you three links. The first is you can go to thebridgechicago.com/radio. Again, thebridgechicago.com/radio, and you can hear basically all of the radio and podcast stuff that I'm a part of. The second place that you can go is facebook.com/thebridgechicago. Again, that's facebook.com/thebridgechicago. Most of the media that I'm involved with will end up there in one way or another. And the last is I'd love to connect with you just personally, and you can find me at facebook.com/Jed Brewer. Again, that's facebook.com/Jed Brewer.
Right. So, thanks, Jed. Have a great evening. Thank you for joining.
My pleasure, Channa, and I hope you have a great morning.
Thank you.